Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. I'm awful glad to be here together with you today. We are finishing our series, definitely finishing our series today. I promise that every week, it seems. That today is the last, no, but this really is, I think. I think I've finally run out of material on the subject temporarily anyway. I often double back because I will see material that I want to talk about in the future about a past show. But not today, I think. We're going to finish up. We have been talking about the habits of miserable people. I started out talking about the 7 habits that were from a Thrive Global, it's hard to say together, at least this morning, article by Tamara Starr. And they were good. Good enough for me to do a radio show. As usual, I usually take somebody's subject and expand on it. So today I want to talk about the 19 things that people do, that unhappy people do. I found it on Pop Sugar, which is another site. But I think this is another place that we can launch off from. If you see me looking around a lot today, we have a new tablet in the last week, and I'm just simply not used to finding the camera. So here I am. I'm finding the camera right now, but in a few minutes when I talk about another subject, I'm going to be looking around for the camera. It's very subtle. It's little teeny, and my eyes aren't that good anymore. Okay. Let's do a prayer, get us all on the same page, and then we'll start. This is a live show, guys. So our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. Keep in mind, if you call that number, you will be on the air. If you just want to see what we're doing, you can either tune in to Blog Talk Radio under my name, Martha Novak, Novak, or Facebook Live. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we are enormously grateful to be here under the banner of loving you, of wanting to know more about ourselves, because this is the discovery of you. We submit to these esoteric channels that are in us, that are opening now so that we may see, hear, sense, and know more than we ever have. We seek the truth that lies in your enlightenment, and we open to it now, at least for these 90 minutes. Thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. And now we surrender knowing anything, for it is the you through us and through all things that know everything. And sometimes we get in our own way by wanting to be right and wanting to be sure and needing an absolute in our lives. You and the ever-changing you and the deepening and growing you is the only absolute there is, the way the system works, of God, of energy. We thank you so much for this and for these dear people that are open to this. And we say this now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of all there is. We thank you, and so it is. And in the name of everybody listening. All right, let's begin. So this is 19 things. I guess I've got 19 here, that unhappy people do. The first one is they worry about things they can't change. Let me tell you why I'm doing the series, and then we're going to talk specifically about this point. When we grow up, as we all did, because the most aware parents cannot know what's going on inside of us, all right? And as a matter of fact, there's a great deal of the population that still doesn't believe that many of these issues are formed in the womb, and they are, okay? They are formed from the chemicals that come from the mother's body to us. And what happens is that we may not understand these chemicals that are, by the way, emotional reactions, because we have all sorts of them that science hasn't even discovered yet. And what happens is when we have one we don't understand, like not feeling cared about, not feeling loved, we actually put it aside to try to understand it later. So when we are born and come out of the womb, we start collecting data. This is how we see the world, that substantiates what we felt. Therefore, if we say did not feel loved, we look around for the lack of love everywhere. And this becomes a life pattern for us. We see what we don't have rather than what we have. Then we, at some point, it's always a choice for all of us, we wake up and we start working on ourselves and saying, that's not the way I want to see the world at all. Now, the thing that's insidious about this is all of us have forgotten what we held on to in the womb that we have been explaining to ourselves and gathering evidence for. But guys, we just don't need to do that anymore. Your job back then was to understand, because understanding leads to your survival, right? That was really important, to make sense of your world. If you had really been born into a random place that you did not understand, it's very hard to survive in something like that. Where are the rules, right? So these were, in essence, rules to live by, but they were issues based on appearances and on these old chemicals. You see. So now it's time to do something else. Oh, good morning, Kat. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for listening again today. You're just one of my favorite people. I always look forward to hearing from you. Guys, those of you that are listening on Blog Talk Radio, I'm often commenting on the people that are writing in. And Kat is one of our dear, sweet listeners and a good friend. So you will hear me saying hello to people and answering questions if you all ever have any on this. Well, hello. How are you? Yes, you are. I have not heard from you before. I would assume Mark is your first name. But thank you, Mark, for writing in. I'm so glad that you're with us today. So, going back to the point of all of that I just explained, we don't know what a lot of times our range of normal is. We actually think this self that is the ego child's mind, which is the part of us that still thinks like the child, very ego-based, very fear-based, right? And we're all, our conscious journey is going from this fear-based self to a love-based self, which is the higher self, the self that is purer in terms of being able to love without agendas. And all those wonderful things you always hear about God are there. Creativity, divine inspiration, unconditional love is possible, although we throw it around way too much, that phrase, when we really don't even know what love is. I often hear people in fantasy saying, oh, I just want someone to love me unconditionally. Guys, come on. None of that happens until a great deal of work on the self. And why isn't that all right? You know, the answer to everything is, it is all right, except in the ego child's mind. The ego child's mind says, no, it's not at all right. You know, these things should be happening. No, guys, it's all right. Now let's make the best of what it is and have wonderful and conscious lives. Now, here's my point. I promised it twice now, right? Here's my point, third time. We don't know what our range of normal is. So one of the reasons I've been doing these 3 shows, and by the way, many shows on cognitive distortions, is to tell you, here is what is outside the range of normal. Now, your range of normal is quite big. It's one of the things that makes this wonderful world diverse and interesting, that we have all of these choices, and some people are creative in the arts, and some people are creative in business, and some people are creative in mechanics. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that we contribute our talents and our gifts and abilities to this world. But the fact is that given that we have a range of normal in the way we should think that makes us happy. Everything that I'm saying in these last 3 shows is outside that range, like the one I've just mentioned. Unhappy people worry about things they cannot change. Now, let's talk about that one. I think a lot of times that love, the love in our early childhood home, where we love what we learn to love, what we love. What am I trying to say? I have not had coffee this morning. I'm trying to give it up. So this is the brain you get today. We learn to love based on the love in our early childhood home until we learn that there is a different kind of love and a bigger love that is not only our privilege to have, but required of us in our personal growth. Okay? That was a complicated sentence. All right, so with that said, many of us link love with other things. What do I mean by that? Well, describe what was in your early childhood home. I mean, really jot a few things down. A lot of you all have pens and papers in front of you as we do this work. What went on there? Was there betrayal? Was there alcoholism? Was there everybody talking behind each other's back? Was there a parent that was very selfish? Was another child favored and you were the second banana? What went on there? Whatever that was, you can be darn sure you have that linked to love until you do not. You have that linked to love. In other words, you draw in another partner and they're going to have some of those same characteristics. It's linked. Now, in my work, which is energy work, that has a heavy-duty psychological component, what we do is we try to separate energetically your idea of that old love from what it really is, which doesn't have that characteristic at all. You understand? Many times, worry about somebody else. They worry about things they cannot change. Worry. They have linked love. Not only that, but people that use worry are also, how do I want to say this? People that use worry use it as a protection mechanism. If they worry about all the things that can happen, the what ifs, and by the way, as a writer, I want to tell you what ifs are wonderful, but on the page, on the screen, in a creative sense, when you're painting, what ifs are great. What if I did this? What if I did that? What if the character did this? What if the character did that? They're terrible in your own life. When they come from a fear-based place, they'll drive you nuts, right? It's very, very important for you all to realize that you don't need protection anymore. You have survived. You have been protected. But you have a propaganda that comes from the ego child's mind that plays out until it doesn't in consciousness work. More and more drops away. But this propaganda tells you that the only reason you're alive is because of your limitations. Because of the limitations that you figured out and that the ego child's mind said you needed. For example, one of my early ones that I had to figure out was I didn't want to be visible. Well, I'm supposed to be visible, right? I was an actor. I was a corporate coach. I still am, all of those things. And I also am this, right? That I specialize in this now. So, what happened was that I figured out, and I don't know where this came from. I'm sure there was an earlier feeling about this in the womb, but here's a memory that I actually remember. And by the way, the memories that we remember are the ones that are supposed to help us release all this. That's why we remember them. They're not supposed to be there just to torture us. We're supposed to be there so that we can take that to our counselor or whoever is helping us and saying, here's a memory. Let's unhook everything that are energy aberrations around that. And then the energy comes fully galloping into the present time, and you live in a very mindful manner. I get tickled with all these approaches that say you need to be mindful, but they never tell you how. And you just can't do it. And you feel like a failure if you're not releasing the past so you can live fully in the present. Last week, I think I said you must, your ultimate goal is not to have a story anymore, a story of your life. You want to live in this moment and make it a marvelous one, with or without coffee. You see? All right. So that gets us, though, ahead of where we are right now. What we're trying to do is rewrite the script for you so you have a different end, because the end of the original script always has been written. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be heartbroken. You're going to be left alone. Add whatever the phrase is there that is what you have had over. And oh, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. Mark was commenting very lovely on the conversation. Thank you. We appreciate hearing from you like this tremendously. You know, it's a lonely occupation when I'm sitting here doing this radio show. Sometimes we have call-ins and sometimes we don't, but I love hearing from you all. You have no idea. And it does help me with the direction of the show, and certainly a direction of future shows. So thank you very much for saying that. Okay. So what we want to do is I was going to finish telling you my story. So I remembered an incident that happened when I was very, very young. I must have been 4 years old, okay? And I was being taken over to my grandmother's house. Now, my grandmother's a perfectly lovely woman. It was just kind of dull over there. All we did was play, what was it? I think gin rummy or canasta. I've hated card games ever since, by the way. And we'd watch her favorite show, which was live Atlanta wrestling. I can't explain them. I'm sorry, I just can't. Anyway, she loved it. Okay. It was not real interesting for a 4-year-old, but Mother and Dad needed a date or something that they were doing that night. So they took me over to grandmother's, and I objected. And the only thing I knew to do to object was to run around the house. Run around too fast, be careless, right? And so she had this divine loop. Her front door opened right into the living room. If I scooted down the hall, through the kitchen, came back through the dining room, and through the living room, I'd end up in the same place. So I started running this loop, right? And my mother called me down, as she should have, right? And hello, Elizabeth. And then I broke an antique vase. I have the match to it, and I just love it. I love it very much, this whole antique vase. I wish I had the other one. But it's there also to say, listen to your mother, right? I think that's why I kept the second one. Anyway, so I broke it. So my mother, I think, took me into the back and probably gave me a spanking into the back room. But here's the thing. What she probably should have said to me, that no parent is saying to their child, is thank you so much for having such high energy. There was a reason, though, that you were running around and being careless. Let's talk about what that reason is. And I'm sorry that we have to leave you. Let's put it in the right perspective. Oh, guys, come on. You know, nobody talks to their kids like that. It takes too damn long. We all have issues. That's all there is to it. But here's what I did with that. For many, many years, my early years, I liked to be invisible. I only went so far with my energy level, with my visibility, because I had already formed in my head that if I had too much energy, I'd get in trouble. I'd do something and break something and be embarrassed. We all have these things that we may remember or we don't remember, and the fact is it's influencing our behavior to this day. Now, that said, linking worry to love and overly worrying about things is not in anybody's best interest. Because here's the truth from my perspective. You've got to go on this conscious journey and find this out for yourself, of course. But I appreciate you are tuning into a show like this, because here's what I believe. I believe God has us all. But we're in the way of God having us. For example, had I not listened to the very clear signals that came along for me saying, open up, get past all of this, I wouldn't be sitting here doing what I love with you, which is where I'm supposed to be right now and nowhere else. So it's very important that you realize first of all, you realize you worry. Second of all, you realize why you worry. Are you trying to protect yourself? Well, you all have, and Mark, you're new to me, but here's something I want you all to keep in mind. This is called the threshold exercise, and I often say this on my radio shows because I want to refer to this. I think it's an extremely important thing. If you draw a horizontal line across the page, now draw a vertical line through that horizontal line. Now I want to say there are going to be many vertical lines you can do this with, but let's just take this one. Put down at the bottom of the line, fear-based anxiety. Now put at the top of the line, peace, that God has us all in the highest self. I'm sure you figured out so far that anything above that line is going in that direction, right? And anything below that line is going in the anxiety direction. Anxiety is a signal to all of us that we are heading in that direction, in that fear-based direction. You see? Well, if it's a worry-based anxiety, that you're below the line. If it is a planning and seeing where you're going, for example, when I'm coaching a businessman, a businesswoman, and I am, and they're making a presentation for something, I'll say to them, give me every objection that any of these other people can make. Let's put it in the body of your script. Let's tell them how that's either not a problem or how it can be fixed, and have that already in there. So it's a non-issue. So at the end, all they say is, okay. Hello, Julia. Good morning to you too, darling. I'm so glad that you came in this morning. That's wonderful. So you all see my point here. Worry changes. Worry is very different. Worry is planning and thinking ahead and having creative ideas, often divinely inspired, by the way, above that line. But down below that line, it's anxiety. It's having to, by the way, here's an important word, control things. And we've got to realize that really we don't have to control anything. We have to listen to this inner in more and more exciting and deeper ways so that we can get that guidance and have those creative ideas and solutions and be ready to implement them. That's what takes its place of all this anxiety and worry. Anxiety and worry tells you that you're below the line. That's what it is. Okay? Especially worrying about things that you can't change, guys. You can't change. So, do you trust on this level of God or not? And I want to tell you that all of us are going to say no if we're honest, right? But that's what consciousness studies do. They open you. When you start getting all of this need for all that old evidence that takes you back down into anxiety, when we stop going in that direction and start opening up and start resolving all of those energetic issues that come from our past, we are really able to open up to see what is, and it's a much better life. Thank you, Julia, for writing in. Let's see if I can tell people. I don't want to read anybody's exact words. She said there is fear and anxiety about starting over, relocating, seeking employment at her age. The what-ifs get on a loop, and she goes into overwhelm, and then she doesn't do anything. You know what, babe? Isn't that smart? That is the human condition. Absolutely. And it all is a loop. You understand? All you're doing is describing there's a pattern here that when I'm overwhelmed, I shut down, and then I get up again, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm shut down, and I get up again, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm shut down, and get up. So it's just a loop. You can't get out of that loop. It's like, going to the mailbox over and over again and wondering why you're not downtown. I mean, I don't mean to make light of this. I understand what's happening here. Darling, the way we would fix that, and I'm not hawking our team. There are many, many fine people out there that can do very deep work to release you from this kind of pattern. But by all means, if anybody is interested in our program, please get on my website, marthanovak.com. I have listed some people I've trained that I have a great deal of confidence in, and we all take private clients from time to time. And you don't have to suffer with this. You just don't. I mean, if you change the energy, you change the behavior. You understand? So we have to look at the energy and all the things that are contributing to that, release those, resolve those, give you a higher mind, and change the energy. Here's the truth, Julia. You only have one thing to do. And that's whatever the next step is. That's it. You don't want to what if. Now, here's the fact of the matter. We are having a little cat fight in the room. Actually, they're just playing, but that's what you hear if you hear some tussling. It isn't me. All right. They're having fun together. And the other one wants to get in on the act, and he's locked out. Okay. One of the things I want you to remember, Julia, is that is just one thing to do, whatever the next step is. Don't think ahead. Don't what if you to death. You see, when you have all of this closed system, and what you're describing is a closed system, you get up, you start moving, you scare yourself to death, you shut down, you get up and start moving, you scare yourself, you shut down. This loop doesn't allow more information to go in or come out. It's a closed system. That's what patterns are. They're closed systems. No information can come in. Okay, she says, Julia goes on to say, someone told me that if I don't make the changes before I move, then the move won't bring the changes I desire. Well, that is true, my darling. It is true. We take ourselves with us everywhere, right? The whole point is for us to change ourselves. And again, I go back to the dialogue. Yes, definitely a loop. Yes, thank you for sharing that. The dialogue here the script needs to change. So the end result is different. That's what I'm saying. Your end result right now is not to move, just to be overwhelmed and to go round and round in a circle. If you have moved before, if you have done this before, in that kind of energy, indeed you go someplace else and nothing changes, okay? That doesn't mean, darling, that you can't move. It just means you better start working on yourself now and break this pattern, because these are puffs of air. They're just fear-based things. And those things can be moved. This whole world, believe it or not, is an illusion. Everything is just your hologram. You believe certain things are true that are not true. I believe certain things that are true that you wouldn't think are true. At least not right now, until you prove to yourself that maybe the world is different. So it's extremely important, my love, to realize that this is your hologram and this is the script you're writing. If you have a beloved daughter or son, a beloved cat or dog, would you sit down and write a perfectly dreadful life for them? Would you say that they're lost and they're alone and that nobody loves them and that they don't eat right and they think badly of themselves and they should just, be scared to death all their lives? The answer would always be no, not if you love someone, but that's the script you're writing for you. We have to change the way you think. Good morning. You cannot call in. The phone is not ringing when I call in. My darling, I am so sorry. I don't know what that's about. I say keep trying. The number is 347-850-1647. But Tabina, oh, I love that name, Tabina. Tabina, you can also just write me what's going on. Julia, what was your no in relationship to? Because I'm communicating with you all, guys, for Blog Talk Radio as they write me. So will you write that and tell me what you meant by no? So we have to change the script. Yeah, oh, I understand. It's probably the script that you would never write a bad script for anybody you love. Tabina, all right, 347-850-1647. Darling, if you can't get through by the end of our class today, by all means, write me on Blog Talk Radio, or you may write me on my website, and that my email, and that's fine too. Yes, I got it, Julia. I'm having two conversations at the same time. So let me give you all my my email, which is Martha Novak, Martha@marthanovak.com. And you all can write me and ask me things, or you could, Tabina, write me on this, okay? Keep in mind that if it's too complex, I may say, consider booking a session. And we're delighted to do that, my team and I, for you. All right. Now, going back to you, Julia, and I want to stay there for a moment. You have this great ability of the mind, but you don't know it. And you're welcome, Tabina. The great ability of the mind I'm talking about here, Julia, is you can believe or you can disbelieve. I know that sounds like it is self-evident. It isn't. And let me tell you why. You go to a movie and you enjoy the movie and all the car chases and the cars jumping over things and the fight scenes and the these and the this. And none of that is real. None of that is real. A lot of those things could not even happen. It's just not possible. And yet we suspend our disbelief because we wouldn't enjoy the movie very much if we were sitting there going, well, that can't happen, that can't happen, well, that can't happen, right? Okay. But you're not doing that in your life. You're not saying, okay, God, this is what I want to create right now, and this is the issue I want to get past, so I'm going to think these thoughts instead and disbelieve this. I'm going to realize this is just part of the child mind, and I'm going to say I'm perfectly willing to work on it and listen to it and get through it, but it goes over here, and it's not going to stop me from creating my life. You're not employing the powers, the real powers of your mind. I do want to say, I've written, I think, a pretty good book that has this big section. Peter, hello, how are you? He says, scripts are key. If your script isn't working, you need to figure that out. That's absolutely right. I say a real important reason is because the end is already written to that script. and you've been living it over and over and over again. That's what a pattern is. And then you start creating the same pattern over and over again. The whole point is that we've got to blow that pattern out of the water. That pattern was designed at one time when you were a kid to keep you safe. Not like my pattern about don't think too big, don't be too visible, oh my God, you'll get in trouble. Oh, to heck with that, you know? If I'm in trouble, I just hadn't explained well enough, and I'll go back and try to explain it better. So, dears, we have to address these things, but you also need to employ the power of your belief system and what you can and cannot do. Thank you so much, darlings, for those hearts. What you can and cannot do with your brain right now. The ego child's mind doesn't control all of you. If I only say to you, Julia, or to all of you that are listening today, are you only your fear and worry? All of you would say, of course not. But you're giving that so much attention instead of saying, I hear you, little ego child's mind. I get it. I should work on these things. I will work on these things. I'm going to put it aside right now and create this instead. If you don't do that, that little child's mind, that limited perspective, leads. I had a client in about a year or two ago. She's one of my favorite people. And I was in a room with a lot of objets d'art, my version of it anyway. And one was this wonderful carved giraffe. And I said, I want you to focus on nothing but that giraffe. I don't want you to see anything else in the room. And she was able to do that. There it was. I said, do you realize that you have narrowed your focus to that? She said, yes. I said, now open up and see everything else in the room. And she did. I said, now open up and see everything you hadn't seen before in that room. And she did. And I said, this is just what we are doing in our lives. When we focus on the negative parts of us, those are supposed to fit into a larger whole. They're not the be-all and end-all like the ego child's mind tells us they are. Part of consciousness work is taking every single one of those at its inception, usually in the womb, and dropping it into the context of your life that you finally open to because you've resolved those things. And you see the larger whole and the beautiful picture. But right now you're focusing only on the red threads of the tapestry. I want to say to you, Julia, that help is all around. I know I'm talking in abstracts right now, but if you will call me or if you'll write me or one of my people, we will not be in abstracts. I'm going to take you right down into the core of why you are doing what you're doing. We all have more courage than we ever know we possess. And as I said, those what-ifs need to be in the creative pursuits, in the expansion of character and story, if you're a writer, and the color and texture and content of your paintings or anything else. They shouldn't be in your life. A good plan, yes. Fear and worry, no. I hope this has helped. Thank you so much for writing in and telling us that. You keep in mind, and Peter, I don't know whether you've just tuned in or not, I say, yes, we must change the script because the end is already written. So you change the script, you change the ending. However, in higher consciousness, where you all are all going to even listen to a show like this, what's going to happen to you ultimately is you're not going to have a story at all. You're going to have this moment, and you're going to make it a good one. And you're going to have the next moment, and you're going to make it a good one. And you're going to have the following moment, and it's going to be a good one. And life becomes such a privilege then. It's amazing. But you're going toward that. Thank you, Julia. I'm glad it helped. You're going toward that. Good morning, Dorothy. Oh, thank you so much for writing in. I'm so glad to be having this connection with you too, sweetie. Thank you. So I want you all to understand what I mean. The process of growing through consciousness and resolving the past and opening to the present right now in a more expansive way is very powerful. And you remember what my definition of God is here. I really love this definition. God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths, always in motion. God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths, always in motion. Hello, Jackie. Good morning to you. So glad that you're tuning in today. Thank you. I remember writing you. I appreciate that. So, God is infinite, absolutely. We'll never know everything about God, right? We just know the God that we are. That's what you're opening to in consciousness. But God is everything. The light and the dark, everything. Ever expanding. The energy of God is always expanding. It is never narrow. The universe is expanding. It always has expanded. We are expanding. And so we must get beyond those limiting parts of us, you understand? It's just not natural to do so. That's where the fear and anxiety comes from, because we're going into the fear and anxiety. We're going down instead of up in terms of that little construct that I gave all of you. Okay? So it's an extremely important thing that we realize what we're doing. And we write a different story and have a different end and keep working on ourselves so that there's no story at all. That's the exciting part, ladies and gentlemen. Then there is no story to influence the present moment. So you can get everything out of it that you can possibly get out of this moment. And I wish that for all of you. Okay. Can you believe we're only on number 2? This is what happens. I get real wordy, don't I? All right. We're going to the next one. These are the 19 things unhappy people do. They give up when things get too hard. I've noticed this with people. They give up when things get too hard. What? They give up when things get too hard. Let me tell you where this comes from. It comes from our never learning to work through anything, to work through problems, to work through relationship problems. I see a lot of people that have relationship problems. I do a lot of couple counseling as well. And I want to tell you the relationship problems are really interesting because these people, one or both of them, have never learned to work through a problem. So they try to control instead and not have a problem. Or they try to avoid and not have a problem. The fact is, you need to learn to work through problems. There are problems in the world. No problem. Pun intended. We have to learn to work through them. We have to go from the limited ego child's mind that tells us we are not enough or we are wrong or we don't know what we're doing. And we've got to stand in the moment and be in our vulnerability and listen to the other person and say, how can we work this out? What's the larger thing here that gets you what you want and me what I want? We've got to learn to work through these things. Sometimes both people need to compromise. Sometimes it's just an agreement that needs to have. I think I've told you all this before. Or should I tell that story? Which one? Okay, I'll tell the one that came up last night. I had guests over, and we were having dinner together and having a perfectly good time. And my organizational skills came up, which are nil, by the way. I don't have much spatial perception anyway, and so I don't use space well, and I'm in a very small house right now, and so I don't organize this space well. I mean, it's, I like large, so I have everything is in its place, that way. Okay, that's my organization. So we were talking last night, and my husband organizes very well. And I was saying that, it's a matter of what we think is important. Because I remember my grandmother, what was important to her was that the food was excellent. And that when she was going to have company over, that is all she cared about. She wanted to make sure that food was fabulous, right? My mother was different. My mother, her daughter, was only concerned about one thing as well, and that was that the house was clean. She wanted the house clean for her company. The food we hoped was all right, but the house had to be clean, and that's what she focused on. And it's interesting. I don't know what I was in my early days. I probably didn't entertain that much. Now I entertain quite a lot. And the only thing I care about is that we all have a good time. You know, I hope the food will be forgiven if it doesn't turn out perfectly. I hope that the house will, you know, be presentable as much as possible. But I want us to all have a great time. Now, that's neither right nor wrong. That's just to say, that's what is important to me now. Do you understand? I probably worked through a lot of that. But when I would come up to the party, I wouldn't enjoy it as much. And I want to have a good time too. I want us all to have a good time. We've got to learn to do these things in the world. We've got to learn to give a good party. You got to learn to be a good friend. You've got to learn to have a good relationship with your spouse. Here's another story. So along these lines, my husband's very organized, and he likes to stack the pans, right? Little ones, big ones, you know, all the way up, right? And that's just great. But I'd rather make sure people are having a good time. I'd rather make sure I'm doing good work. I'd rather make sure that I'm enjoying and having a lot of experiences with him. I'd rather make sure that I'm writing a good book. There are things that I think are more important than stacking the pans. So in the beginning of our marriage, he was criticizing me for not stacking the pans because I just chuck them in there and hope that the door closes. I'll, you know, maneuver them if the door doesn't close. And that drove him crazy. And I said, sweetheart, let's talk about this. These are the things that I think are important. You obviously think this is important. I will appreciate it if you will stack the pans when you want to. You don't have to stack the pans for me. But if that makes you happy and pleases you, then it'll please me as well. And that's just fine. Stack the pans. But don't look to me to stack the pans. Guys, I'm giving you this story just simply for you to realize there's a way to work everything out. But this kid that gives up when things get too hard doesn't know that. Doesn't know there are happy, expansive solutions for everybody. And that's something to address, you see? We've got to learn how to do that. If you didn't grow up knowing how to do that, and you show me the person that did in every aspect, they don't exist, then it's extremely important to learn how to do it now. And the way to do it is to come out of that past and not be right. You know, Michael and I could have argued over that pan for 8 years. Those pans. That's ridiculous. We just had one conversation about it and it was done. He just needed to know how I felt. I needed to know how he felt. He needed to know what I was doing other than stacking the pans. Okay, tell him. Very important, guys, that you learn how to work through things and you don't give up when things get too hard. One last point on this is about relationships. I have seen a lot of couples come and go in my years. I like to work with the people that are sincerely committed to wanting to make the relationship work and aren't afraid ultimately of change. And we've had some very successful relationships that have come out of that kind of coaching. However, it is based in truth-telling. We've all got to learn to tell the truth, because what's below great communication? Below great communication is being able to express the truth and tell the truth. All right. So I always am a little suspicious of any couple that comes in and says, oh, we don't argue about a thing. Life is just wonderful. And it's like, oh, we got some work to do, okay? Because that isn't real. So, it's extremely important to, I keep saying that phrase, but it is extremely important to first learn to tell the truth, recognize what the truth is, tell it, and then start working from there on a resolution. really, really important to do. And sometimes a lot of anger comes out at that point because you've stored all that truth of yours, stored what you thought for a really long time. Now it's important to tell it, but we want to, by that time, tell it in a loving manner. And we want to formulate new ways to live, new ways to do things, new ways to communicate, new ways to relate, you see? And it is in that that you find out you can work through everything. Because most couples that don't have this kind of consciousness, here's what happens. There's a problem. They believe it cannot be resolved because everybody's on their own pole and they won't give it up. And guys, you have to give it up and come to the middle, naked, emotionally naked, and work it out, right? Everybody's on their pole and they think they have to stay there for whatever issues make them cling to that. When really all they have as a decision, if they're clinging to their poles, is to sweep the issue under the rug. All right, so 20 years pass, you got a great big pile of crap under the rug. There's the elephant in the room nobody's talking about. What do you do with it? Well, at that point, you have to forgive it and start living differently. You have to go in there and clean the dirt out, or you have to get divorced, sell the house and go somewhere else. Okay? The whole point is, once that debris is under the rug for a few days, you don't have a name for it anymore. You don't have a name for it. So you can't go to someone and say, I have a little problem with this. Can we talk about this? Let's see if we can work out a solution here, because that made me anxious, that made me unhappy, that made me feel like I wasn't cared about, that made me feel like I'll never get what I want. It is when it happens that you must resolve it. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of awareness, self-awareness. That takes a lot of a deeper and more powerful love, so that you can stand there and hear what the other person thinks too. And how, hello, Randy. This is my cousin, everybody. Good morning, sweetheart. This is how you work it out. You've got to work it out in the moment. You can't sweep it under the rug, or it becomes something that doesn't have a name, that's just wrong with the relationship. You understand? Good. Number 3. They take themselves too seriously. Guys, I've noticed for years that OCD, for example, obsessive compulsive disorder, and I hate the word disorder because, in my opinion, a lot of these things that they call disorders are more ordered than normal. So I have a problem with that, but I call it a defense instead. So let's get on the same page here, and we'll say the obsessive compulsive defense. This often happens when people put tasks before people because they don't think anything has a resolution. They try to control situations and control their environment and control their safety, of course. And the fact of the matter is that all the fun of life and the spontaneity and the impetuousness of this moment and the fun goes right out the window. And it's a shame. We want pleasure and fun in your life. Now, if you've been reared in a family with a very judgmental parent, once you get out from under that judgmental parent, guess what you become? Because what has been instilled in you every day is that you need that judgment, so you start doing it to yourself, you see? Well, that's no way to live. That's not fun. Hello, Michelle. Good morning to you, darling. All my old friends are showing up. I'm so glad that you tuned in today. Thank you. You see what I'm saying about fun? We need to show you how you're not having fun and what you're doing and how hard you're going to be on yourself. Force is not fun, guys. And I have a million examples of this. One of my dear friends, who is in my advanced class. I had told that class that we were going to have a very emotionally charged next class. So I said, for next class, this was a week ahead, right? For next class, I want you to make sure that you have some sort of comfort food or something. I'm going to want you to go do something for yourself, have some comfort food in your house, plan what you're going to do that you think is just incredibly kind and loving for yourself, because it's going to, to reward yourself for working so hard in class, because I'm going to really challenge you. Heads up. Okay. So let's skip ahead 2 weeks. So that class came and went. Skip ahead 2 weeks. All right. So I was asking everybody what they did for themselves, and everybody was having these glorious experiences and said, oh, I did this. It was so much fun. I did this. I did this. I did this. Everybody had a good time except one person. And I said, well, why didn't you have a good time? And she said, well, a week ahead of time, when you told us this, that we were going to have a tough class, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to eat a gluten-free pizza all by myself with all the works, and I was going to watch my favorite television show. And I said, and she said it was horrible. And I said, why? And she said, well, number one, I took one bite of the pizza, and I knew I didn't want that taste that right then, but I forced myself to eat the whole thing because that was the decision I made. You told us that we needed to do something pleasurable. What? Okay, I hope you're catching that. And then number two, the television show that I love so much was repeated, and it wasn't even a good repeat, and I forced myself to watch it because I needed to do something nice for myself. I hope you all are seeing this, because what she did was she imposed these things on her too early, and she didn't anymore consider herself. What you want, consider yourself in the moment. This is the literal moment, this marvelous moment for you to do something with, right? And you can change your mind right on the spot. But she didn't. She forced it on herself. And she was the only one in the room that didn't have a real powerful experience. Do you understand by that? What I'm saying here? Very important for you to understand. We're all doing things like that. We're all eating the pizza we don't want to eat. Now, how are you doing it? Change that. But see it first. Don't avoid seeing. Whatever you see, we can get on the other side of it, okay? We shouldn't be afraid to see this. It's going to require change, but incremental change that leads up to a different place, a different world for you, a happier one. Or I'd have been out of business a long time ago if these things didn't make you happy, I promise. They make you happy. Okay. All right, what are we to? I think number 4. They ignore their health. I think sometimes people that are unhappy really aren't in touch. Oh, Peter is giving me a message. This is a very interesting topic, Peter. Thank you for bringing this up. Let's give you his question. I'll see if I can't answer it now. Certainly we could do a radio show on this. It's great, Peter. Peter said, isn't it secrets that can lead to relationship problems? Or are there times secrets are okay? Maybe address this next week. It's an interesting topic. It is an interesting topic. And I do think there are a lot of, we have a lot of places to go with this. So let me start. And I may have to do another show on what we're talking about right now, because you guys are so great today about writing in some of these things that we really should be talking about. Okay. I happen to think that secrets that are particularly unresolved in you lead to relationship problems. I believe that all of us have periods in our lives that have been difficult. Okay? I do believe in sharing those with our partners. However, we're mixtures of light and dark. So the real key here is for you to make your peace with those things yourself. You know, I think I mentioned last week that one of the big conflicts, I think, is between people's highest self and acts they've done out of fear in the ego child's mind. I can think of 2 movies like that, although there are a lot of movies. This is one of the common themes, right? If you'll think of Casablanca, for example. Rick, the Humphrey Bogart character in Casablanca, didn't give a flying fig about anybody because the woman he loved didn't need him to go away or whatever it was. They were going to run away together in Paris years before. So he had this nightclub where drugs and alcohol and murders were happening, and it's just like, you know, it doesn't faze him, right? And then the woman shows up, married to another man, married to a man who is really strong in the resistance and is doing great work for the world, right? And Rick's character grows so much in love by the end that he smuggles them out of the country at the sacrifice of himself, indeed, if he was going to be sacrificed. You never know. That's a lesser self to best self scenario, right? Now, there are many of the movies that don't resolve those things. For example, Sophie's Choice. Sophie's Choice, sorry, spoiler alert, is when she, but it's a marvelous movie, watch it anyway. She is a Polish woman, as I recall, with 2 children. She has a little boy in her hand, a little older boy, and she has the girl in her arms. And she runs up to a Nazi because they're loading them on the trains to go to the death camps. And she says, oh, please, let us go. And he says, yes, I will, if you'll give me one of the children. I'll put them on the train, and then you all can escape. And he goads her and goads her and goads her, and she becomes very reactive. That's an ego energy, by the way. And she finally screams at him, take the girl, gives him the girl, and she and the boy flee. It's something that she could never resolve in her mind, and by the end of the movie, of course, she's committed suicide. The story is her long journey to that. This is the classic, I can't resolve what I did with who I am now. The best self and the lesser self do not agree. And lesser self is not a judgment. It just means it's the ego child's mind self. It's adulterated, right? I think of 12 O'Clock High with Gregory Peck. He is some sort of officer in the war, sending all these boys into battle. They're going to get killed. He knows these are hopeless situations. And by the end of the movie, he can't resolve that in his head. And he gets a little crazy. He gets crazy, quite frankly. So, concerning these secrets, Peter, I think it's really important for us, certainly, to be as honest as we can. Judy is writing in. Hang on, Judy, I'll be right with you. Let me finish this thought with Peter, and then I'll come right to you. So I think it's really important to certainly reveal who we are to an intimate. We must, right? But I think it's even more important to resolve these things in us because we are the light in the dark. You understand? All of us are light and dark. We've all come from these fear-based selves, and we're all trying to make our journey to something more. And it isn't what we've done in the past that should still control us. It's what we're doing right now. You know, my favorite expression is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. What are you doing with this moment? You see? So that's the first thing I want to say about the secret thing that you just said. The other thing I want to talk about are lies, because we've all been told not to lie. Don't lie. It's a sin to lie. Okay. I don't happen to believe that. I think there are lies that help you and another save face. I think there are lies that support someone else when you know they can't do anything but what they're doing. And so I don't, and there are lies to help protect your family a little more. I'm simply too busy. I cannot do that, or, or something to that effect. So I happened to, I had a woman that called me who was really caught in the lies or sins thing. And I was talking to her in her session, and she was saying, oh, I can't lie. It's so bad to lie to my mother. I can't do this. And I said, let's tell her the truth then. Let's say this. Mother, I've been afraid of you my whole life. You are an asshole with a capital A. I can't stand you. You control everything. You suck the life out of every room you're in. People tolerate you. You have made me your best friend because nobody else will be. And I'm sick of it, and I'm not doing this anymore. How do you like that? That's the truth, isn't it? Yes, okay. Shall we tell your mother that? No. Then why don't you just say you're a little too busy to receive her phone call? On these days, you can do it on these days instead. Because she was calling every day, right? You understand? So there are things that you say out of love. Here's the bottom line truth to everything. What's your motivation for speaking up or not speaking up? You're never going to be happy with yourself if it's not from the love-centered place. If you're doing it from the fear-based self, it's something to work on. And this is how we resolve the highest self with the lesser self. And again, that's not a judgment call. And I hope that answers your questions, Peter. I know I went into something else, but I think it was a sister or cousin or something, to the original point. All right, now let's see what Judy says here. She says, please speak 1 week on how we subconsciously start to react to things that have happened to us many years ago, and it gets incorporated into our present lives. I hope I asked that correctly. Thank you. And I have to go over here to Seymour. Let's see if I can bring that in. All right. I'm not bringing in the rest of it. So I'm going to answer as much as I can of that, Judy. Judy, if you've tuned in late, you missed a part of the program where I did pretty much explain this today, all right? And I am delighted to speak on this again. I am delighted to do that. But we start out as this little, I think it's important to explain now, so I'm going to go into this. We start out as one cell. We are one cell, my dear. A lot of information comes into that cell about growth and change, right? And so that one cell either divides and becomes two cells, that, by the way, can handle that kind of stress and more before they divide, or that cell dies. At any point, the cells can die, or they can divide. This is the fundamental, the absolute bottom line fundamental thing about our penchant, as now the beings we are, toward pleasure or pain. We avoid pain because pain to us as cellular beings is death. And pleasure, or at least something that doesn't hurt as much as pain, we go to because that represents life to us. We are, hello, Lisa, love, love, love to you too, darling. We are at the base of us cellular beings. And that's why we respond to this pleasure-pain thing the way we do. Okay. So that's what's going on in the womb. Now, let's add some other stressors to the womb. Let's say we say at 3 months, the mother finds out she's pregnant. She tells her husband, and he goes, we can't afford a baby. Oh, my God, what are you thinking? You know we can't afford a child right now. I don't want to be a father, okay? And the mother reacts to that. Maybe the mother has doubts too. Nobody particularly likes being pregnant. If they do, that's wonderful. But a lot of times our bodies feel uncomfortable. So we're having those moments of not feeling comfortable. All those chemicals are pumped into the baby. The baby doesn't understand this. Baby's just pure undeveloped love. I say undeveloped love because it's going to be an ego-based system to begin with, right? The developed love comes with work. So what happens is we have experiences like that in the room. The mother doesn't feel good. The mother feels good. The mother decides to smoke a cigarette. We get sick. You know, all sorts of experiences are happening. That and sometimes even violence. We don't understand what that is as a little tiny child in gestation. So we're taking those chemicals and we're putting them over there, and we say, I'm going to look when I'm born to see what all that. Now, this is not a thinking process. It's just the way it all works. Okay, I'm describing it as a thinking process, but it's not. You're going to have these unresolved things even from the womb, and you're going to start looking for them in life as evidence of what those weird feelings were in the womb that you could not resolve. This is how it all starts. If you want to know more, some other of my radio shows go into this in more detail, and I'm delighted to do one for you as well, okay? So, yes, I think that you're asking correctly, but if I have not hit exactly what you want to hear, my dear, by all means, just write me back and say, explain this one then, okay? I'm trying to be as articulate as I can without coffee. All right. Unhappy people do tend to ignore their health because I don't think they fully value themselves. They don't fully appreciate themselves. Certainly, we are eating, drinking, and carrying on the way our parents taught us. We're either embracing their way or we're reacting against their way. So I think that what we need to do is, in consciousness work, you learn to take better care of yourself. If your dog that you love more than anything comes back with a cut paw, you would immediately get help for that dog. But how many times have you accidentally or otherwise cut yourself and not done anything, and it becomes red and infected? We have to learn to take better care. If a cut is on the table in front of us, if we have the opportunity to eat right or eat crap is in front of us, why are we making the choices that we're making? Many people have issues about, well, it doesn't matter what I do. Many people just don't have a clue about how to take care of themselves. All of these things are movable and learnable. And I think it's extremely important. I think there is something below taking care of your health, and that is, do you matter or not? And I think part of our spiritual journey is to realize we matter, we're unique, nobody has our background, our certain gifts, talents, and abilities. Nobody sees the world exactly as we do. How do we use it to contribute to this world and to be a participant here? And in all of that, we find our value through that process. You are valuable no matter what, no matter your level of health or illness, no matter what you do for a living or don't do at all. You matter. And we have to find that out, that we matter. And then we have to start mattering to ourselves. And then we want to, if you go far enough into consciousness work, you really do want to be a participant. You really do want to contribute. One of the things that I have given a lesson on before, it's another radio show, is on your values. And I think this has a lot to do with the baseline that I'm talking about now, and that's relationship, your relationship to yourself. On the internet, there are a lot of websites that list personal values. I would get on that if I were you, and I would print out a list, and I would see what values you have, and I would choose, and this is a real good way to find you, I would find 3 of them, only 3, you're only allowed 3 in this exercise, okay? And in this, what I want you to do is to choose 3, and here's the rule, that you already are almost all the time. Choose 3 that you always are almost all the time. Don't choose something like something you want to be. Choose what you are right now, only 3. It's a great exercise to have, because then throughout the week, I want you to make sure that any interaction you have, anything you do, that you bring those 3 things to the interaction. Bring those 3 things to the party every single time. And notice, this is just as important to the exercise, notice when you're unhappy that you have abandoned 1, 2, or 3 things, because that's in the direction of the fear-based self. We start narrowing, we start leaving these things out of who we really are. And we'll never be happy if we do that. When we do that, it's the undertow that pulls our health and well-being down. Because health is not just our physical health, it's our emotional health, it's everything. So we've got to have a sense of self. Your sense of self has a lot to do with the values that you live every single solitary day and bring to this world. Now, you're going to add more of them, but 3 will really help you start this exercise and become more aware of, oh my gosh, I am leaving this out. Randy just wrote, he said his are creativity, compassion, and patience. I love that. That's wonderful. Mine is creativity too. I think another one was love for people and animals, and there was another one. What was it? I can't remember right now, but I am off my own personal agenda right now, but I'll tell you later, Randy. I'll have to look it up, okay? Okay, that's really important. I think the other one was compassion, now that I think about it. Thank you so much. I think that's something that we have in common. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it is. Okay, so just a tip, real important to do. The next thing that unhappy people do is they set unattainable goals for themselves. I do think this has to do with the issue of perfectionism, and it may have the issue of workaholism connected to it. They set unattainable goals for themselves. There's a woman that I know that very much has been in the throes, she's not anymore after working with me, but of perfection. She had to do everything perfectly. I would say to her, why have everybody over to Christmas? You're in your 70s. Why do you want to do that? Why not go to one of your children's houses? Or why not go out to eat? Or why not have everybody bring something for potluck Christmas dinner and you do the turkey and that's all? Why knock yourself out and be crazy about it? Now, she's very OCD too. Oh, I can't possibly do that. I have to do it my way. And I do want you all to understand that she says, it's tradition, it's tradition. And that was years ago, by the way, because there are no enlightened traditionalists. I want to put that on the table right now. There are no enlightened traditionalists. You all have to move past tradition into the way the world is now and how it should be, okay? And everybody's busy, and do what everyone can do so that you can have, here we are back to one of my things, a good time. She'd make herself crazy. She wouldn't enjoy it at all. She resented it, as a matter of fact. Unattainable goals. Now, here's the rub about unattainable goals for me, is it makes you feel good in the moment when you can attain them. But it's at the expense of your whole life. It's at the expense of yourself. It's at the expense of your enjoying everything in the moment. It's at the expense of you, the overall you. So many of the things we're doing is for the momentary fix of making ourselves feel better. But at the sacrifice of yourself and your overall happiness. So I ask you to rethink that. There is a point, they talk about, science talks about an apostat. I don't know whether there's really something like that or not, but I can tell when I eat, I reach a point where I know one more mouthful and I'm not going to feel comfortable. So I stop right there. Don't ask me why I'm still overweight, but anyway, that's just the way it is. I stop right there. And there's also a pace point. This, by the way, took a lot of work on me because I was a workaholic at one time. You want to work, and do good work, and at one point you go, I think I can walk away now. This is where I walk away. If you don't have those moments of realizing I don't want to eat another bite, I won't be comfortable, or I need to stop right now, I'm not going to be productive after this moment. Those are very important things to develop. Now, what's in the way of that? Well, issues that tell us we have to do something else, that we're not good enough unless we work really hard, that we don't deserve our money unless we overwork, that nobody will like us unless we overwork, that we're trying to please a father alive or dead or a mother alive or dead who are very critical of us, and surely I can win their approval. Finally, we have as a subconscious thought, drive, okay? A programming below our conscious minds that create us acting and living the way we do. And dears, you just don't have to do all that. Not anymore. All this is movable. I am telling you, all this is movable. I'm the poster child for this work. Everything's movable. Okay. 7 minutes. Dear heavens, we're going to have to do this show again. All right, one more. Let's see. I think we'll stop with, they focus on their weaknesses and not their strengths. And certainly this is something that we talked about before. They focus on weaknesses and not the strengths. You remember the giraffe thing that I gave you earlier, that example? You narrow your focus to what's wrong with you instead of what's right with you. And there's a hell of a lot more right with you than wrong with you. We all have these things that we are unforgiving in ourselves about. Well, guys, we have to address them, not sweep them under the rug. Okay? We address them, we resolve them, we are at peace with them, we move on, we make this moment glorious. It's key to life. Now, I'm going to stop right there and say, guys, I'm just crazy about all of you. Oh, Lisa has a note. Yeah. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. It was a love note from Lisa, and you all have no idea how much that means to me. I'm thrilled to hear from you. I really am. And I pray for all of you all and anybody who listens to this show. You can, all these shows are archived. Have I said that to you all before? They're archived, and they're on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and on YouTube. And so anything that actually makes it to the air, because sometimes our technology goes down, anything that actually makes it to the air then automatically goes to YouTube. So please listen to some of these other shows. Also, there are people that are doing study groups from these shows, and that just delights me, and I'm delighted to address your study groups, no problem, and answer any questions that you all may have about all sorts of things. So enjoy your lives, guys, and I appreciate so much you're listening. Thank you also, and it does mean the world to me that you all like us and follow us and share us and befriend us. That means a lot. Thank you, Julia. That means a lot to us, and if you can get the word around about us, we'd appreciate it. You're welcome to send this show out. I think if you get on Blog Talk Radio, they have a little thing, or at least they used to, saying that you can post this to social media. I'd appreciate it very much for getting the word around about these shows. We are trying to get everything out about us. If you want to read more about what I've talked about on this show and much more, like spiritual surrender or the manifestation of what you want in a deeper sense than some of the things that are out there, and those kinds of subjects, my first book, which is not an easy book to get through, by the way, it hits a lot of issues, but it's a good book to read, is called The Life You Want. You can get that on my website. And also the second book that's very fun and easy is called The Teacup Prophecies. And those are just quotes from all the shows, and it's a wonderful and easy way to get your spirituality going in little bites. It's also an app for your iPhone, and we're about to come out in the next few months with a Droid version as well. And it's very inexpensive. I think the iPhone version is 99 cents. So by all means, put it on your phone. Anyway, we so appreciate you listening. It just means the world to me. And we'll start where we left off. Thank you so much. She said, great book. Second one I use daily. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. It is a good book. I use it all the time, too. You know, I'll ask for something in my meditation and open it up, and there's the message for me, and it means a lot. Very scented messages. All right. Guys, let's do a prayer to get all this moving in us. I'm remembering every single one of you all who have been communicating with me today, and all of you all that are listening that I haven't heard from. I appreciate it so much anyway, and you are always included in every prayer. Here we go. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we are so grateful for all the lessons and for the openness that we are right now. We ask, dear God, that we surrender what we can, that we have spoken about today or more, and all vestiges and related issues to you. And we ask that in place of this, love enter on a deeper and more profound level, wisdom on a much more deep and profound level than we've ever had, the awareness and consciousness of the life that we are changing and growing from and into. We thank you so much, dear God, for everything. We ask now that all this prayer goes out to everybody we love as well, for them to take what they can of this lesson. You know, we all think that it's about words. It's not. It's about energy. Energy reaches everyone. We are all contributing to the world through our energy, through the ego child's mind energy or the highest self energy. We ask now that we move more of our energies into the highest self, where we surrender these old things and are born new. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this, and we say this prayer now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of everyone
90
listening.
seconds.
And in the name of everyone listening to the show today, we thank you so much. And so it is. Amen. Guys, thank you. And we love you very much. And have a great week. We'll be back with the rest of this. I love talking about, you all are taking me in such good directions. So I love talking with you and what you're writing in. And I'd rather address that than just stick to an agenda, you know. All right, guys. Take care.
60
See you.
seconds.
60 seconds. See you next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Daylight savings time. I think we'll still be in daylight savings time. I hope so. Anyway, check. Take care. Bye-bye.